Hi guys, welcome back. All right, so Aries, let's go ahead and take a little peek at what's coming up next week for Aries. 5 of Swords, King of Wands, Ace of Cups in the reverse. It's weird because somebody that adores Aries could get pissed off at to the point where Aries doesn't feel so lovey-dovey toward them. Or this could be somebody's having a bunch of problems and having an argument or a fight. It almost, okay, so let me just say what I actually think here. It almost makes me feel like we have rivalry between possibly two masculines over Aries. Now, it could start out with an argument between Aries and, this person, but it's because he's pissed that we have somebody who would like to really pursue Aries. Or it could be somebody is jealous and rude toward Aries because they're pissed that Aries is in a loving connection with somebody. All I can say is the net result from what I see is Aries does not feel warm and fuzzy toward one of these two. I'm not sure. Look, I have a hard time believing that this King of Wands is still upright and loving on Aries after having been super rude. That's why I feel more like there's a rivalry here and that Aries is going to be really turned off by whomever is acting all aggro over this. Let me see here. 5 of Wands. There's definitely, like drama amongst more than one person. It's either the drama spills out into the group or the drama is certainly there between, Aries and this other person and then this, a suitor. We got a King of Cups. This King of Cups, we can't see their face. Is that the person who's all bent out of shape and mad? Are they being hostile? Yeah, 10 of Cups sideways. Okay, so this could be an ex who's still in love with Aries. And if Aries has to interact with an ex, like let's say, all right, so we all know we're headed into holidays. So let's use that as a familiar scenario. Sometimes around the holidays, we see our exes, we see, other people in our lives, right? In this fictional story for this fictional Aries, it could be that, Aries and their new boo go to, whatever, Thanksgiving dinner, swap the kids from one house to the next and see Aries X. And Aries X is none too happy because Aries X is still very much in love with Aries. It's like, but I remember when I made you happy, Aries. Now you're happy with this joker, and he's wearing a cape. He's like, I'm sitting here in armor and he's wearing a cape. It feels like there's rivalry. How come you're with him? I'm better than him. How come, look at his outfit. He's got a paisley shirt and a cape on. I'm wearing armor. Don't you want a warrior, Aries? It feels like that, but I honestly think that might be one of the reasons that Aries is like, that's exactly what I don't want, is somebody who's always going to be hostile and get up in your head and imagine that somehow I'm supposed to pick you. Here's the thing. This person, again, is in armor and they're like submerged under the water. I feel like whomever this is an ex who loved Aries but never could show it. Maybe they are not the kind who can show it, but boy, they can sure show irritation. Or in this case, they may be just, look, it doesn't mean screaming, yelling, fighting, right? The 5 of Swords can be that little passive, aggressive, look somebody up and down and make a little face. And that's a 5 of Swords, It doesn't mean that they're saying anything to Aries. It just means I think Aries is going to pick up on the spidey sense that like, wow, they're really pissed to see me happy and talking to a King of Wands. Even if it's just that the King of Wands is attracted to Aries, Aries may not even be with this person. It's just that we have a rivalry here. Even if Aries is like, I didn't even create this rivalry. I got nothing to do with it. Doesn't matter. We have an ex who is all salty. Or maybe this is somebody that they never got a shot with Aries and they wanted a shot with Aries. It may not even be an ex. It could just be somebody who sees another rivalry coming in or another rival. And that's making them salty because this says they have submerged their emotions for Aries, but they thought they could make Aries happy or that Aries was happy with them once upon a time. The only thing is this behavior doesn't seem to be thrilling Aries, is what it seems like. So this week could be a weird, like, energy week. Yeah, Seven of Swords. Aries might act like they don't notice anything, but I think Aries is going to be picking up on it. I think if anything, Aries is going to act like they're totally oblivious, either to, maybe to both of these dudes and their behaviors. Aries might ignore one person's, overtures. Aries might ignore the other person's jealousy. And Aries might just handle this with as much grace as they can by acting like, okay, well, I'm going home now. Bye bye. Aries goes home. It feels a little like that. Like Aries is so gonna like sidestep or not answer or tell a whopper of a lie if they have to, just to get out of conversing too much about this. We've got a Queen of Swords. It's weird because if Aries is about to lie their way out of something, like, sidestep, avoid, or even respond and be like, what? No, I didn't notice. I don't think my ex is doing anything. I didn't see them jealous. Or no, at the whatever holiday party, I didn't see that exchange. I was oblivious. I do think that there's somebody else. This could be a boss figure. This could be a close friend. This could be somebody who's like, look, I can tell you without a doubt, Aries, you've got two people thinking about you. It just feels like we have a third individual who's not going to put up with any crap, even if Aries is trying to brush stuff off and act like they didn't notice. This Queen of Swords is probably going to say, it's tempting to brush it off and not deal with it, but it's probably better that you acknowledge what just happened, Aries. It feels like there's somebody wanting to give Aries a little bit of advice about this rivalry stuff. Four of Swords, Ten of Swords. It has to do with making sure that you give somebody closure. Or making sure that, if anything, it's like, Aries, look, that person hurts over you, because even if they just acted like a fool or kind of rude or aggro, they're really hurting over losing you, is what I see there. Like that's what this friend or, somebody who's wise might say point blank to Aries. Like, you can pretend you didn't notice that, but you do realize that they're hurting over losing you. This is a tough thing for them. And that might just be something Aries, it might make Aries feel good to hear, like, wow, so that person, they actually, maybe they don't handle it very well, or they didn't handle the situation with me very well, but they're bothered losing me. Maybe Aries needs to know that about this person. Maybe that's a little bit like healing or soothing or something. Page of Pentacles. It might even make Aries reconsider, do I have some kind of conversation still left with them that I need to discuss? Is there something? Seven of Wands. I don't know. This is tough because if Aries doesn't want something to do with somebody, there's still a nice way to like give closure. And but again, Aries might be saying, but I don't see how this person's going to accept any closure if they're not going to get what they want. Aries might be saying, I either want to like close the chapter and then keep up a boundary, or it kind of hints that Aries might have to decide how they're going to handle something so that in the future they don't wind up in this awkward moment again. It does feel like rivalry, but ultimately Aries gets to pick for themselves who they deal with and who they don't. There's a lot to be said for being gracious. There's a lot to be said for not leaving people hurting. There's a lot to be said for closing chapters and saying there were a lot of great, traits that, wonderful things about you. And I'm glad that we met, even though I'm moving on with my life. I wouldn't have traded the time I spent with you, but I am moving on. This could even be that Aries is like, I don't want to always be in conflict with somebody. And that could be one of the big reasons that Aries is like, I don't want, to, especially whomever seems to be jealous or something. It's not that Aries needs to give somebody like, here's why I'm not with you. This is where you suck. It's nothing like that. It's more that Aries doesn't have to do anything first off. If they want to say something, give someone closure, say something polite, close a door and say, I didn't play with anybody's feelings. I was concise. I spoke what I meant. And I also closed doors, and I, gracefully and, appreciatively said, thank you for the dance. Thank you for your time. That might be how Aries thinks about handling it after this exchange, or if there's been something unspoken between Aries and another person. a friend that they never dated who now sees Aries dating somebody, and Aries knows I hurt their feelings and I can't pretend that I didn't. It's always like which is better, to identify and communicate what's sitting right there out in the open, or to ignore it and pretend it's not there. I don't know what the right answer is. And of course Aries is the only one who will know what they want to do. But I just see this as like Aries is definitely wanting to, I'm just going to say, to move on and in the most graceful way possible and not create hurt or drama. And that right there speaks volumes of, how caring Aries is, even though at first they were trying to just like, I hope that nobody noticed the conflict that just arose. I do kind of think that Aries has somebody else on their mind though, with that King of Wands. It does look like there's somebody else on the horizon for Aries, or somebody Aries is already interested in. All right, anything else for this week? We have High Priestess. Be a week where, in particular, Aries is going to be, very intuitive. They're going to be picking up on the vibes. They're going to be seeing things that are hidden. I don't know if I'm picturing Aries like, I don't know, if they give somebody gas money this week to help them on their journey. This could be a total stranger. This could be somebody who's just passing through. This could be Aries knows that somebody needs something and they just anonymously like give somebody a little bit of support. We have Queen of Wands. I definitely think with, especially the stomach circled here, and it's this, piece of agate. I don't know if Aries wears a gem or a piece of jewelry that has an agate on it, but I could see Aries like really stepping up in their own life as somebody who intuitively they start to really trust. I don't know if Aries works in like a healing capacity. Also, I'm getting somebody who works in the healthcare field, and they're like, you know what? It's a combination of my knowledge and my, empathetic, compassionate nature that makes me really effective in this job. I pay attention. I see, if somebody's crashing, I see it sometimes before it happens. I'm realizing that's a real skill that I've got. It just feels like Aries really stands out in whatever field they're in. If this is about work related, Aries might also recognize that they stand out in life in general. There's something here where we see all these little babies floating around as well. And I can't help but think Aries either like works with kids or nonverbal, or like I said, patients or pets, or, anybody that Aries connects with their spark of life to Aries' own spark of life. And I just feel like Aries is very good at connecting to others this week. And they might recognize this is a real gift I have. It doesn't have to be healthcare. It doesn't have to be childcare. It doesn't have to be, veterinarian. It could be just like Aries is recognizing that I have this gift. I can connect to the spark of life in others, and I can, really sense them. I can sense when they have a need, little or big, and I can kind of get in front of things before stuff gets wonky. This is also a week where I think Aries is going to look particularly impressive. I don't know if they're dressed really great. They could be wearing like all white, with like a tan belt like we see here. Aries could be wearing a cute hat. Aries could be wearing a cute cloak. They could be wearing something that is like, it's kind of out of the ordinary. It's something that might really make Aries stand out wherever they go, whomever they're around. I see Aries being very, very visible. Like heads might turn. I'm picturing Aries walking across a street, a city street specifically, by the way. And like people in cars are turning to look. There's something, even if it seems understated, it doesn't mean it's flashy, doesn't mean it's showing skin. It's just Aries, I think, is going to be really exuding a lot of power this week. And they kind of know it, but it's also like a weird, quiet presence. I think Aries has a lot of star power this week. If they would like to negotiate things this week, people are going to want to do business with Aries. They're going to want to hear what Aries has to say, because Aries is unusual. There's something very unusual about this Aries, and it really shows this week. And it may be that Aries is very tapped into people, can really like connect to people's energy, and people are responding well to that this week. They feel closer to Aries, and this could be in the workplace. This can be, like I said, even just individuals who need a little bit of help. I could see Aries doing some good works this week. all coming from like this intuitive space. Like, I just knew I needed to do that. I just knew I needed to approach that person. I just knew they needed something. And I just kind of feel like Aries just rolls with it. It's a very beautiful character. All right, I'm going to leave this here. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. Thanks for giving it a thumbs up and subscribing. Aries, I look forward to sharing some stuff with you that is coming up pretty soon on my channel, stuff I've been working on behind the scenes. So I will look forward to kind of revealing that as the week goes on. All right, take care. Bye for right now. Lots of love.